What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It's another late night for me, keeping up with all the stuff I have to do with my family, but also keeping you up to date with that Pathfinder 2nd Edition preview content. I told you guys we'd have it Saturday morning. Saturday morning it is, and here we are in what is probably the best named of the Paizo blogs, big beards and pointy ears. Today we have two new ancestries for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the Elves and the Dwarves. Let's talk about them. Real quick before we dive in, this episode of your Pathfinder 2nd Edition preview content was brought to you in part by Steven Tasler. Steven is one of our newest patrons. We've had several come in recently, and several of them are at a high enough tier to get a regular shout out. However, we're going to hit all the new guys at least once because we appreciate all of you so much. So Steven, thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Now let's get to it. So there's not a lot of, hey, why are we doing this? Or, hey, this is the new mechanic in this blog today. We're straight up just looking at how the race looks on the character sheet in terms of its ability bonuses and stuff. Let's start with the Dwarf. Not unlike the Goblin, the Dwarf gets 3 ability boosts. 1 to Constitution, 1 to Wisdom, not unlike how they're already working in Pathfinder 1st Edition, and 1 to the score of your choice, which again still blows my mind and again sells that not all dwarves or elves or Gathlin or whatever race you're playing are created equal, which I'm super down with, but we still take the ability flaw to charisma. Of course, we could just put that boost into charisma to negate it, but that's an entirely different min-maxing video that we'll probably cover later. A dwarf gets 10 hit points from its ancestry, which is more than any other of the ancestries in the core. Honestly, I thought the dwarves might have landed at 12, half-orcs might have hit 10, and a lot of the other medium races would have landed at 8. But hey, you know, if my dwarf wizard has 10 free hit points at first level, I'm not complaining. A dwarf's speed is 20 feet, and they can ignore the speed reduction from armor, not unlike how they work in 1st edition. They have dark vision, and they speak common and dwarf. Now, so far that seems like a Pathfinder 1st edition dwarf, right? We've seen everything we normally get, but we haven't seen, like, proficiency with the Dwarven War Axe or a +1 to hit versus orcs. Those are ancestry feats in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. For dwarves, the ancestry feat weapon familiarity gives them proficiency with battle axes, picks, warhammers, and special weapons with the dwarf trait, like the Dwarven War Axe, or to quote Paizo, your beloved clan dagger, forged for you at birth and capped with a gemstone sacred to your clan. Not sure what that means, not sure what that does, but it sounds super sweet. Another ancestry feat we're seeing for the dwarves is known as Ancestral Hatred, which gives you a bonus to damage against things like Darrows, Durgar, Giants, or Orcs. But in 2nd edition, that bonus goes up for a full minute, 10 rounds, if you get critically hit by something that Ancestral Hatred qualifies for. So if that Orc's Falchion cuts in a little too deeply, bam, your bonus to hit him in return spikes in response. I love it. Now, one new thing that this blog does bring up is the Heritage Feats, which are a special type of ancestry feat that reflect special physiological traits of your ancestry that can only be selected at 1st level. One of them for dwarves is known as Hardy, which lets them resist poisons and recover from poisons more quickly. We don't get a whole lot of details on them yet, hopefully that's soon, but we get to also see in this blog some of the backgrounds that our characters will be able to grab. To quote Paizo, for instance, the dwarf suggests backgrounds suitable for many sorts of dwarves, the acolyte, nomad, or warrior, or for those who specifically follow a traditional dwarven way of life, the barkeep, blacksmith, farmhand, and merchant. What these mean, we have no idea at the moment, but I'm assuming they're gonna function pretty much like they do in Starfinder. Everything from Ace Pilot to Xenoseeker and back again. It probably means an ability score bonus. It probably means maybe a skill focused thing. Maybe even something like certain bonuses that only work in certain situations. I am super curious and super stoked. I can't wait to get my hands on these things and start building characters in this world. And one of those races that I will probably be building pretty soon in this world is the elf, because elves are my favorite of the core races. I guess I'm kind of a Legolas fanboy. We've been over that. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, an elf gets a bonus to dexterity and intelligence, and just like all the other races, they get a +2 to 1 ability score of their choice. But their frailty is represented by an ability flaw in Constitution, which is exactly what we see in 1st edition. But these guys have a little teeny tiny low amount of racial hit points. That's 6 hit points at 1st level if you're an elf. As we can expect, the elves speak Common and Elf, and they're likely to have an intelligence high enough to select a 3rd language. Whether or not that functions the way it does in Pathfinder 1st edition remains to be seen. We'll have to push forward and figure that out then. What we do know in Pathfinder 2nd edition is that elves can see in dim light, and to quote Paizo, they have the highest speed of all the Ancestries at 30 feet. Paizo says that going to 3 actions per round brought the other Ancestries that were as fast as elves in Pathfinder 1st edition down to 25 from 30. We don't know how far that extra square in a given action will get you, but what I do know is my favorite race in Pathfinder is faster than all the other core races, and I'm good with it. Elves, of course, have their own ancestry feats and their own heritage feats. The first one that gets brought up is Keen Hearing. Unfortunately, all we know about this one right now is that it makes their hearing better, more keen, one might say. Probably increases your proficiency bonus in perception, and I'm totally okay with that because let's remember, perception is how we roll initiative most of the time in Pathfinder 2nd edition. These guys also have access to a feat that is known as Ancestral Longevity. To quote Paizo, this feat reflects how some of their life experiences might fade from the forefront of their memory until they stop and focus on them. This feat allows your elf to become trained in a skill of your choice when they prepare for the day. That means your elf barbarian can have thievery, your elf barbarian can have all the knowledge checks. Really, I'm just stoked for it because my favorite character, my first character I ever played in Pathfinder 1st edition was an elf barbarian, and if he gets more free access to stuff without, multi-classing, I'm in. The last feat we're going to see today is an ancestry feat for the elves called Nimble, which lets them raise their speed to 35 feet, and lets them ignore a square of difficult terrain during each stride action they take, which means we're now a full 2 squares faster than everyone else in the party. Not only does that get us into the fray faster, so our elf fighter can sudden charge just that much quicker, it also feeds that old adage that you guys might be aware of, I certainly am. You don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the guy with the 20-foot move speed. Looking at you, Dwarf, who honestly, with his weapon familiarity and his higher hit dice, is probably not even running in the first place, while the pointy-eared elf is sprinting away from the combat. He's probably war-axing into the bear's face, but I digress. We see some other background stuff when we talk about elves. Again, we don't have any information on these backgrounds other than the names. Those names are Hunter, for those raised in the wild, Noble or Scholar for the more cosmopolitan elves, as well as Acrobat, Entertainer, and Scout for an elf with a more adventurous bent. Right there, Hunter is a background. Hunter might not ever become a class in Pathfinder 1st edition. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit, maybe I'm assuming a little too much. Maybe Paizo honestly hasn't thought that far ahead. Regardless, that could be big news for the far future of Pathfinder 2nd edition as we start seeing Blood Ragers and Brawlers and Swashbucklers, oh my. Again though, we're just gonna have to wait and see. And there you have it. There's the breakdown of the dwarves and the elves in Pathfinder 2nd edition. What are you guys thinking? Are you an elf player? Are you a dwarf player? Do you want your orc or your hobgoblin or your Aasimar to make core so we can have them just right away as we bust out the Pathfinder 2nd edition playtest? Hey, speaking of that playtest, our Doomsday Dawn giveaway is still live right now. Patreon's holding steady at $69 a month right now. If we can get that up to around $150, I'll run you and 5 of your fellow subscribers through the Doomsday Dawn adventure, the first ever published bit of adventure for Pathfinder 2nd edition. If you'd like to learn more about that giveaway, follow this card right here. And our Patreon link, as always, is in the description. Speaking of giveaways, again, we did roll over the next giveaway benchmark. You guys can probably expect that video sometime in the middle of next week. I'm still kind of parsing out exactly what I want to do because the growth has been so humongous. So as we end this video, thank you guys so much for your time and support. As always, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. The next episode of our Pathfinder 2nd edition coverage, where it looks like we'll be talking in detail about the Alchemist, drops next Tuesday.